How are y'all doing today? Welcome back to Shakir Dare's Fashion History. Today I'm not going to be doing a fashion video, but more so a architecture, lifestyle, period video, as I should say. Is this recording? Let me make sure this is recording. Is it recording? Hold on. Okay, it is. It should be. Hold on. Okay, it is. Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry, I'm all over the place right now. Is it recording though? I really don't want to make sure that hold on. This better be recording because I don't have. Okay, it is. Sorry. So I am recording this at 8 o'clock, basically. So if you do hear cars go by with loud music, or if you hear my cat scratching at the door like he's getting ready to do, just don't mind it. Actually, let me just let him in so he doesn't create a ruckus. So we're going to be talking about Art Deco in America today. You know, Art Deco is one of my favorite periods. Basically, it's like one of the best periods, I want to say, in America. So basically, Art Deco, this is coming from Google. Art Deco, sometimes referred as Deco, is a style of visual arts, architecture, and design that first appeared in France just before World War One. Influenced the design of buildings, furniture, jewelry, fashion, cars, cinemas, trains, ocean liners, and everyday objects such as radios and vacuum cleaners. So basically, this was an entire period. Art Deco is not a revival. It's literally not a whole revival. It's literally its own period. In the 20s, there kind of was this revival of certain things, and each period has its own revival. Like you have the French revival, the French Renaissance revival, the Spanish colonial revival, but this was its own period. So Paris 1920s, actually I meant to say 1910s. So let's disregard that and just make that a one. Paris in the 1910s really had the Art Deco. Right before the World War One, Paris was in the Art Deco move. So you have this structure right here, and this is a lobby of a hotel in Paris. So that's really where it originated from. It originated from France. That's where it came from. That's where Art Deco. Excuse me. That's where Art Deco came from and everything. So yeah. Before Art Deco, there was Art Nouveau. And Art Nouveau is way different than Art Deco. Sometimes I see a lot of people blend the styles together, which I think is freaking phenomenal. But it is actually a whole different style within itself. Art Nouveau is an international style of art, architecture, and applied art, especially the decorative arts known in different languages by different names. In German, style liberty in Italian, modernisme in Catalan. If I'm butchering it, please correct me in the comments. In English, it is also known as the modern style, which was going on in France and Europe around the dates of 1890 and 1910. That was Art Nouveau. To me, Art Nouveau looks like you're stretching gum. It looks like get a piece of gum, or especially bubble gum, you stretch it, and then the little holes start to appear as it's stretched because it's dripping. That's kind of what it looks like to me. I'm not really a big fan of it. I do think it's gorgeous at times, but I'm definitely an Art Deco fan, and I'm not even that big of a modernist. So, what was going on in the 1920s? Basically, we gotta look at that. What was going on in the 1920s? So all of this really goes back to like pop culture. You have Gloria Swanson. If you've ever seen the movie Sunset Boulevard in the 1950s, this is Norma Desmond. But this was her in her prime when she was a silent movie star. We have Josephine Baker down here, who is one of my inspirations as a Black person. She was the first, basically, Black breakout star of the of ever. Just of Black breakout star. She's American. She's from St. Louis, but then she moved to France, and she noticed how Europeans would treat her because she was a person of color, and she noticed that she would have to deal with obstacles as racism in America, but when it goes to Europe, they never see somebody like that, so they were more so nice to her. Then you have Clara Bow with the what her signature look, was a movie star. You have Louise Brooks, who is the basically want to say not the originator, but one of like the one of the like originators and like I don't want to say originator, but like one of the like trendsetters of the bob haircut. The bob came out in the 1920s. Then you have the little 1920s styles over here. Also, finger waves was a thing in the 1920s. That's literally when it started in the 1920s. Woodrow Wilson, who was the president at that time. I think I said the name right. Woodrow Wilson. Wasn't okay. And then in the 1920s, you have women's voting rights. So women were able to vote in 1920. And also, you have the Al Capone era, the era of the gangsta. Not today's gangsters, which are it's not, but this is organized crime, literal organized crime. This is going on in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. It was like the Italian mob. That's what was going on. Also in the 1920s, which really kind of started more so in the 19 like 16, but it really broke out in the 1920s, which was the Great Migration. So black people from the South migrated to northern states and more urban places just to make a better life for them and their family and their future family. So as you can see by the map, a lot of people came from Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, South and North Carolina, and they would go to places like Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and beyond, which to more urban cities just to make a better life for themselves. So basically, with Art Deco architecture, I want you guys to be aware that well, Art Deco architecture, everything is it's like we're focusing on geometrics. Art Deco architecture has a lot to do with like geometrics and So what you're gonna look for in Art Deco architecture is modern and traditional buildings and materials. Art Deco buildings utilize materials like terracotta, decorative glass, chrome, steel, and aluminum. You're going to look for ornate and geometric detailing, like I just said. So, Art Deco motifs include chevrons, pyramids, stylized sunbursts, or floral zigzags and geometric shapes. You're also going to look for framed shapes, decorative geometric windows, and spires. So that's what you're going to see with when it comes to. Sorry, my cat is over here, and he's just like stop it. So I didn't want to let him in here. So yeah, Art Deco also had a big impact on the fashion at the time. So at this time, everything was literally, like I said, geometric. So everything was straight up and down. It was about the slants. It was about the lines. So when you look at the clothing of the women that they wore, there was no shape to the bodies. Like there literally was no shape to any of the bodies, any of the clothing. Everything was genuinely straight up and down. There's no silhouette. Look at where the waist, like literally look at where the waist like begins. Like it's so low. Um, so yeah, basically, a lot of people think of a lot of people what they think of when they hear 1920s, they think of the flapper, and the flapper it wasn't like an everyday thing that went on in the 1920s. I believe that the flapper was more so just for performers or just hookers. So yeah, and also in the 1920s is when makeup started to become normalized. But like I said, also with the men's suits, as you can see, men wore a lot of pinstripe suits because again, geometrics, straight up and down, zigzag, slant, just straight lines basically. And here we go with the men. Like I said, pinstripe suits. Everything that you see is more so geometric, straight lines. This is what men wore more so in the daytime. Like this is their casual look, and this was the evening wear for the gentlemen in the 1920s. And this is an advertisement for men's shoes. Dudes were nothing but Oxfords back then, and I love these shoes. I especially love these and these. So sexy to me. I'm obsessed. When people hear the 1920s, they immediately think of the Great Gatsby. Like that's the ultimate freaking um that's the ultimate freaking Art Deco movie. This isn't the first one, but the one that was really popularized back in the 1970s was The Great Gatsby with Robert Redford and Mia Farrow. Also in the 1970s was a Art Deco revival. So Art Deco was started to come back in the 1970s, and you're gonna see a pattern with the decades. Literally, this is why I think history is so important because everything freaking repeats itself. So you got to be aware. Everything it just repeats itself. I believe in the 60s there was more so of a um, 20s clothing style with the straight up and down silhouettes. And then the more modernized Great Gatsby, which is the most theatrical and opulent Great Gatsby, which stars Leonardo DiCaprio, that Spider-Man dude, Tobey Maguire, Carey Mulligan, and yeah, so I love that one with Leonardo DiCaprio. It's so theatrical. The cinematography is out of this world. It's just so like what? Um, so basically, this is what America looked like in the 1920s or like late 1910s before Art Deco. So it was pretty just bland. This is Chicago. This is State Street. This is New York City. You have the Brooklyn and the Manhattan bridges, and then you have Jersey over there, which is damn near nothing. And then you have Los Angeles. These are both LA. I believe this is the City Hall for Los Angeles, and then this is also Los Angeles. So yeah, you see it, you definitely see it. Also, Art Deco literally spans not just through the 1920s, but it also goes into the 1930s, which is the sorry, it also goes into the 1930s, which is the Great Depression, and it spans through the Great Depression and literally through the whole Prohibition era. So it spanned 2 decades, and it was strong. So yeah. Also in the Art Deco period, there was the in 1922, King Tut's tomb was unearthed, and when I tell you that literally like caused a nation like a worldwide like movement, like everybody was just doing this Egypto, they call it Egyptomania, like literally Egyptomania. Look, everybody want to be Egyptian and be from Egypt, and you know how they do when they desecrate Black culture, but that's a whole different story. I don't want to get into that, but I will say, oh, it had a big thing on architecture in the 1920s. So this right here is a storage place in Chicago in 2325, 2333 North Clark Street, and it's called the Reeby Way Storage Place. And it just has these two Egyptian figures, and this is all made out of terracotta. It has two Egyptian King Tut figures. And over here is the Grauman's Egyptian Theater in Los Angeles, California, Hollywood. Everybody knows the Grauman's Chinese Theater, which was also part of the 1920s. There also was the Chinese um, revival, but the Egyptian was a little bit more stronger. Um, but everybody knows the Chinese theater. That's the biggest. That's the most famous. One of the most famous theaters in the world. But also there was the Egyptian theater before the Chinese theater. So yeah, Art Deco took over the world. Like I said earlier, it was just over household items and just everyday objects. So you have this Art Deco lamp, which is gorgeous to me. Art Deco vacuum cleaner, the Art Deco these are like the most like the wall lamps that you see in government buildings. Art Deco cigarette lighter, radio, desk, or like a little table, and then a chair. And this is actually from the 1920s right here. All of this stuff is from the 1920s, I believe, except for this one. But this is literally like you can like, oh my god, it's from like I think 30s. I want to say maybe 20s, 30s. But I love it. Art Deco also, God, I really hope I don't get flagged for this. But Art Deco also has a huge impact on art. Art was something that was so important back then. Basically, every period, every art period reflects the times. So, if you study art, it kind of is like the history of civilization, damn near. But I want to say, if you look at art, basically it reflects the times. I just said. So Art Deco art was beautiful. Again, if you're paying attention, you see nothing but just like these straight lines, geometric lines, and everything is about the shapes. So this is by the artist Tamara de Lempinka. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that. Um, she was a Polish painter who spent her working life in France and the United States, and she's best known for her polished and glamorous Art Deco portraits of the aristocrats and the wealthy, and her highly stylized paintings of nudes. So she was big on the feminine body. She always created Art Deco nudes, as well as over here in the corner. She painted nobody but the wealthy. Everybody, almost everybody who you see here is like rich. Basically, she painted the wealthy. She painted like that excess, people with excess wealth and whatnot. And I'm obsessed. I This picture in the middle, I have it big as hell because I just think that it's one of my favorite paintings of all time. I'll say that. And I really want that frame to put in my house. I want to get a print of it and have it framed, put in my maybe in my kitchen or something because my kitchen is red and it has this little red. Her hair is red, so I'm obsessed. It's gorgeous. Like I really am a big fan of Tamara's work. So yeah. So it really had an impact on art, even though she also drew the guys. Everything looks so sophisticated and like what I just read. It's so polished. It's so glamorous. It's just so. It literally just screams like affluent, and I'm obsessed. I love it. Art Deco also had its like huge impact on jewelry. Even to this day, Art Deco jewelry is still being produced. So you have like again, pay attention. Everything is geometrics. It's all about the shapes. Baguettes, the baguette diamonds, the emerald cuts, and the look at those emerald cut sapphires. All of that. As you can see, there's stars like one of my favorites and one of my biggest inspirations, Marlene Dietrich, who is a German American actress. I'm obsessed with her. She's one of my biggest inspirations of life. And then you also have the watches, which I think the watches were the most famous things of the Art Deco period. So, yeah. But nothing, literally nothing, had a bigger impact during the Art Deco period than the buildings. The buildings were what was catching people's eye. And it's just like, what is that? Like, that's what Art Deco is. So this right here is one of my favorite Art Deco pieces, Art Deco structures of all time. It's in New York. This is the Chrysler Building in New York City. It is right, I believe, on 45th and Lexington Avenue. I want to say yeah, between 45th and 46th in Lexington. Between 45th and 44th in Lexington. Um, what can I say? Anytime I'm in New York, I try to stay as close to this building as I can because that's how much I love the Chrysler Building. So even a lot of people don't even notice, but it even has setbacks. You don't really see that when they're pictures like this because you don't see the setbacks, but it has its little setbacks. So it is actually 1,046 feet, which is 319 meters. It is the tallest brick building in the world with a steel frame and was the world's tallest building for 11 months after its completion in 1930. As of 2019, it probably has been outed, but as of 2019, the Chrysler is the 11th tallest building in New York City, tied with the New York Times building. Now, that's probably been beat out because New York is always erecting more structures. New York literally competes with themselves when it comes to architecture. So that's probably have changed. That probably has changed. But yeah. So this is the lobby. When I tell you the lobby is the most Art Deco looking thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Like I kid you not. Look at like how beautiful that is. Look at the rectangles going down. Like again, it's all about the shapes. Look at that shapes. And then like this is the same thing, but it's more so half. But it's beautiful. Then you have another New York structure, which is I believe the most famous building in all of New York. Literally, if you do not know this building, I feel like you might be living under a rock. And this is the Empire State building. Um, it's been literally serenaded in song. Like you have Jay-Z and Alicia Keys who made the song Empire State of Mind. Like this is like one of the most amazing buildings in the world. Back in the day, they people literally would create buildings to show they were number one. So in New York, they were always like, "Hey, we gonna outdo these people." Chicago always erect because I'm from Chicago, guys. I'm gonna get into that later, but I'm from Chicago. Chicago would always erect the tallest buildings, and New York would always try to compete with us and try to outdo us. But New York is like they ain't short stopping now. Don't get it twisted. But this is the Empire State Building. It stands at 1,250 feet, and it is 380 meters. It is actually the building that beat out the Chrysler Building because they were both erected in 1930. So it was the building that beat out the Chrysler Building. Counting the spire and antenna, the building clocks in at a mighty 1,454 feet, which is 443 meters. It's currently the fourth tallest building in New York City. It's the sixth tallest building in the United States and the 43rd tallest building in the world. I'm not sure how old that those facts are, but it's a pretty damn big building. So let's just look at it like that. A lot of people don't know this, but Art Deco has taken over Miami. Like Art Deco is a pretty big thing in Miami, and it has always been. But you know what? It's pretty much overlooked because when you think of Art Deco, you think of like these huge, huge cities and like these more like metropolitan areas like Chicago and New York. You don't really think of Miami. But Art Deco in Miami is more whimsical. It's more colorful. It's more playful. So if you look at these structures right here, you see a lot of colors with Miami Art Deco. When it goes to like New York and Chicago Art Deco, it's more so the like actual like materials like granite, limestone, like what was the steel, and terracotta. With this, it's more so like playful. It's like you don't see too much of like steel or anything like that, or just any frame. Sorry, I think it's the truck going by. But you see a lot of like this playful. It's blue, it's pink, it's purple, it's all these fun, whimsical colors, and that's what makes it so cute with Miami. So yeah. Now listen, there's no other Art Deco city. There's no other city that's so damn Art Decoed in the world. Well, in the country than Chicago. I'm a Chicagoan, born and raised. I literally live in Chicago. Chicago's my home. I'm never turning my back on the city. This is my home. But I will say, anytime I'm downtown, you pass an Art Deco structure almost every minute. Chicago is a city of architecture. One day I'm gonna do a video on Chicago architecture because our architecture is so like that's what makes Chicago Chicago. So you have the Merchandise Mart over here. You have the Drake Hotel, which is in the going towards the Gold Coast, right at the end of downtown, Magnificent Mile. The Intercontinental. What I think is so amazing with the Intercontinental is because it has these like hieroglyphics on the side. Again, with the Egyptomania, it literally has hieroglyphics on the side of the building. So if you ever come to Chicago, guys, or if you're in Chicago, like make sure when you're downtown, take a look at the Intercontinental. It has like the hieroglyphics. I'm stunned. Then you have the Palmolive building, which was originally the Playboy headquarters where Hugh Hefner did his business. His office was right up there. Then you have 333 North Michigan, 1 LaSalle Street, and the Carbon and Carbide building. But there's no other freaking structure that's more famous in Chicago that's Art Deco than this. This is the most famous Art Deco building in Chicago, possibly in like one of the countries. Like it's so famously Art Deco. This is the Chicago Board of Trade. It sits right at the end of LaSalle Street. We call it the LaSalle Street Canyon. right at the back, like right at the end of the LaSalle Street. That's where it is. It's in the Chicago Financial District. It sits at the end in between two banks, literally like two banks. And I believe this one right here is literally the Money Museum. So the Chicago Board of Trade is like one of my favorite buildings in Chicago. I'm obsessed with it. The Chicago Board of Trade building is a 44-story, 604-foot Art Deco skyscraper located in Chicago's downtown loop, standing at the foot of the LaSalle Street Canyon. Construction built in 1929 by William H. Boynton, who was the architect, um, and it was opened in June of 1903, and the architecture firm was Halliburton Root. Um, and it's located at 141 West Jackson Street. When I tell you guys, seeing this at night, and you also might recognize this building because if you're a DC Comics fan, this and you've seen The Dark Knight, was it The Dark Knight Rises? The Dark Knight Rises, which I think was the one that was filmed in Chicago, like all throughout Chicago. This is Wayne Tower in The Dark Knight. So this, like, when people like when they see this structure, they're just like, damn, like that's from Batman. Like people literally, Batman fans come to Chicago to see stuff like this because they're just like, damn, that is from Batman. And then over here you have Ceres, the Roman, I think the Greek goddess. Ceres, the Greek goddess of grain. And also right here you have this Midwestern depiction of trading, which since you're at the Board of Trade, they're just showing you what it's like to do the trading of grain. And then over here, you have the inside. I was actually just in the Board of Trade not that long ago, and it was just like I was in awe. Like it was so beautifully Art Deco, but it was more. It wasn't as, I would say, like it's definitely had its touch ups. I will say, um, because it's not as it's not like it's not as like Art Deco as I would say the Chrysler Building in New York. Chicago's Board of Trade is a more so it's more polished, and it's not all like the New York Chrysler Building. I'm literally just talking on top of my head. Let's just move on. This actually is my favorite building in all of Chicago. This is the Civic Opera Building in Chicago. It sits at, hold on, sorry, I should have been looking at my thing. Um, it's a 45-story office tower located at 20 North Wacker Drive. It's Upper Wacker. Don't get it confused. If you're not from Chicago, there is also a Lower Wacker, which is a subterranean street. Still Wacker, but it's underground. Um, this building opened in November of 1929. And it has 3,563 seats. And it is the second largest opera auditorium in North America. So I like, sorry, do not mind the motorcycle in the background. But this is one of my favorite buildings in Chicago. Seeing this building at night when you're driving by, it's so stunning. It's so freaking stunning. So these are the seats over here. Even the inside is really Art Deco. Um, the lobby when you're walking in, very, very Art Deco. This is the back of the building. It's facing the Chicago River. This is also the back of the building. This is the front of the building. So when you see the front of the building, it's more so like kind of flat. It doesn't have the setbacks. It looks like a throne. It's actually a really interesting story about this. Um, it's supposed to actually look like a throne. They didn't do that on purpose. Not like how. Not, I mean, they didn't do that like on accident, like, or not even on accident. But they didn't do that like intentionally. Like I can't explain it, but they wanted this building to look like a throne. With the Board of Trade, it just more so happens to look like a throne. This is actually meant to look like a seat. And then over here is the entrance. There's two entrances. This is the entrance on Madison Street, and this is the entrance on Washington. This building takes up an entire city block. And over here you see this beautiful, like, gorgeous, freaking. I can't. I forgot the name of it. God, what is it? It'll come to me. But you even see, like, since this is a theater building, you see the sad and the happy faces, of course, with theater. So yeah, that comes. We are at that. We are at the end, basically. That is it for Art Deco in America. Art Deco is one of my favorite periods because it's modern but not modern. You know, and to us it's not modern, but if you talk to Josephine Baker, if you talk to Tamara de Lampica, if you talk to maybe freaking Al Capone or John Dillinger, they're gonna be like, "Oh, that's just a modern building. That's modern." Today in this world, we think of modern as glass. We think of modern as basically glass. You know, a lot of these structures now that I'm seeing being erected in Chicago and especially New York City, it's nothing but just glass towers, glass boxes, glass rectangles being erected into the sky. I don't feel like it holds a lot of architecture to it. It's just glass structures. But with Art Deco, it's modern, but it's not just some type of glass. It's not just up there to be up there, basically. Not up there to just be a condo or be an office building of something that doesn't even exist yet. So yeah, thank you. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I want you guys to have a good day.